Hi friends, it's your girl Harpo. Welcome to this episode of Brown Girl Guilt. Today my guest is Meagan. Meagan is a nutrition coach for girlies struggling with their hormones and gut health. She's a wellness entrepreneur, owner of the Wellness CEO, a health and wellness platform. She's also a certified personal trainer and Pilates expert. More than anything, she's on Instagram telling girlies like me and you what it truly means to be a hot girl, which is healthy and well.
The cutest welcome.
Welcome, Meagan.
Why, thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm really excited to have you here as well. I was just telling you off the podcast that ever since you and I have known each other, I've wanted to have you on the podcast, which seems to be the theme a lot with all my guests recently. So let's tell everybody the story of how we actually know each other, grounded into context.
Okay.
So we started following each other on Instagram probably around the holidays of 2023. And I started to look at your content, and you were just saying all the things that I was feeling, thinking about, struggling with, or wanted a little bit more guidance on and clarity on. For context, Meagan, you post a lot of content on Instagram that is related exactly to what I said in your introduction about girlies and our relationship with our gut health and our hormones. And as somebody who has had PCOS for many years, those are things that I was navigating. And then I reached out to you and I said, I want to start working with you. I want you to be my nutrition coach. I want you to help me move through my relationship with my body and nutrition. And then we worked together for 3 years, starting in January of 2024. Not 3 years, sorry, 3 months. It felt like 3 years. 3 months in January of 2024 until about this spring. And there was so much that I learned from you. It helped give me the foundation of my relationship with nutrition as I know it today. And I will say that I had worked with nutritionists in the past. I'd worked with various other practitioners in the past, but I think it was working with you that really, maybe I was just in the right place to receive it. Maybe it was your expertise. Maybe it was the niche that you provide. But more than anything, I felt like our time together gave me the most solid understanding of my relationship with food and nutrition. And ever since then, I've wanted to just open that information and wisdom up to a lot of the girlies who are listening so that they could also have a little bit of you in their life.
Harpo, I'm just so proud of you.
Aw,
I'm
you.
so proud. But I think, thank you for all that you said. It means a lot. But yeah, 3 months felt like, pretty sure we extended a bit. I feel like we purposely didn't want to finish. So we extended it to maybe 4 months. But I think when I was working with you, you were one of those rare clients where every time that we had a session, you had a breakthrough. And most of the time, it wasn't even me telling you these things. It was things that we had talked about. You left, you reflected, and then you came back to me and you were like, I thought about this. And the other really cool thing about you is because you don't work with just one person, you are the type to bring in so many different people to help you. And I think that's what made you so successful. And like how you are today is because you don't just rely on one person. You take a bunch of things. And I think that's something that I love.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think because our wellness and our health doesn't happen in isolation, right?
No.
It happens because we're in a state of receiving, we're in a state of learning and creating. And that's why I think that happened. And you were able to fill in a gap or fill in a void that was existing there at the time. And I think that's why we worked so well together. So let's back up. Let's talk about how you actually got here. How did you get to becoming a nutrition coach? What was your journey like to getting up to this place in your life and your career?
To keep it real, I'm now 26, 27. At the age of 13, all I wanted to do was be skinny.
Yeah.
And so that was about 13 years ago. And it was the same time where Weight Watchers was really big. I watched my mom get up on a treadmill every morning at 6 a.m. She'd run for hours. She never said anything to us about what we should and shouldn't eat, but I watched her want to be a certain way. And I assumed that every woman wanted to be a certain way. So at the age of 13, I started dieting. I would get up with my mom to go to the gym at 13.
At 13.
At 6 in the morning. So at grade 8, before school, I was at the gym. And I've been like blessed that I've kept that routine now for 13 years. But when it started, it was unhealthy. It wasn't for the right reasons. And across from my school, there was a McDonald's and a pizza place. And so I would work out in the morning, go to McDonald's for lunch. And I didn't like the way my body looked, and I didn't understand why I was doing what I thought was right. I was barely eating. So I'd have McDonald's every day, but I still wasn't eating anything else. It was just a cheeseburger. And I still didn't like the way that I looked. I didn't like how I felt. A huge part of why I was so strict on my food and my workouts is because my home living situation wasn't the greatest. I'm now at a place where I've forgiven everybody involved, but back in the day, parents were really toxic. And looking back, I used that as an escape. And everything I did for my body was for survival. I always had tummy issues. Another reason why I didn't want to eat anything, because every time I ate, it would just aggravate it. Stopped eating, worked out all day. I was a complete mess. Up until I was about 20, I was an absolute mess. My hair was falling out. I had bald patches everywhere. I was super, super underweight. I was super skinny. I thought I looked good, but I felt like absolute crap. And then somewhere along the way, my parents finally divorced. We left. And when I was able to leave that environment, I could fully start healing. I tried doing it when I lived there. It's just, you can only try so hard. Left, had my own peace. I felt safe. And as soon as I felt safe, I knew it was ready to start healing. And that's when I went on this huge journey to find what I really wanted. Again, I used to work out. I didn't love lifting weights. I needed to try something else. I loved the way Pilates felt. I loved how low impact it was. I felt calm doing it. And so between 21 to 26, there was a whole lot of healing. And in that came going to school, getting certified. I got certified as a nutrition coach, a hormone specialist, a gut health specialist. And ever since then, all I wanted to do was share it with other girls, specifically brown girls, because I know I'm not the only one that came from a background where parents on arranged marriage, it was toxic. They grew up in it. I'm the oldest daughter in a brown family. And I know I'm not the only one who has experienced it. And so I wanted a space where I could share with other girls and help them get to where I am. And that was basically why we are here.
Yeah. Okay. And yeah, you're not the only one, because I'm sitting right across from you and I have the exact same story, right? Where like you're in a home, maybe there's conflict, maybe your parents are compatible. And, you're suffering in silence through all of it because you're the eldest daughter. And so you're taking. Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about that. So Meagan's just pointed and put her hands on her belly and said, like, holding it right here. That's why I wanted to have you here. This is why I wanted to have you on the podcast, because a lot of brown girls have a lot of tummy problems. A lot of us have issues with our bellies, with our gut health. I've had this like little pouch since I was like in grade 5, and it just hasn't gone away. And I'll share this with you in a little bit, but this morning I had this like revelatory meditation and it was just so beautifully timed just ahead of this podcast episode. But can we talk about that a little bit? Like, why do so many brown girls have tummy issues?
I think, okay, so let's back it up to what we talked about before the podcast. A lot of our trauma and what our body holds on to isn't even ours to carry. It's our parents, it's our grandparents, it's generational trauma that we hold on to. And that's for everybody, whether you're brown or not. Everybody has that. But when we were born, we just, unfortunately, if you have that background, were predisposed to feeling more anxious. You were going to have more issues. You were just like, it's not your fault, but this is just the way you were born into it.
Genetic, yeah.
And then you're raised in a family where your fight or flight is constantly triggered. You don't feel safe, even though no one's physically abusive. There's just the energy in the house. And so you grow up not feeling safe. The other one that always breaks my heart is, I know for me, like my mom, when she got married, she was 19. She was a kid. Yeah. And my dad was, bless, we're fine now and we've all moved on. But when they got married, he was a drug addict. And so for her to get married off, move across the country, just across the sea, she came from London to up North Terrace. Yeah. And my dad was not 100% a good man. It's scary for her. Yeah. And then she has me and she's trying to raise a being while being in a house that didn't feel safe. Right. And I'm growing up watching it all happen. I'm feeling it all happen. And ever since I was little, and as most girls will know, you have that tight feeling in your belly. There's this saying where it's like that feeling is like your guardian angel's telling you something. It's a knot in your stomach. It's your nervous system is just overstimulated all the time. There's not a space for you to relax. There's no way for you to come down from it.
Yeah.
And for a lot of girls, we start to do things that, like, you have coping mechanisms. For me, it was restricting what I ate over exercising. For some people, it's eating everything in plain sight, whatever makes them feel good, which is typically cupcakes, chocolate, candy, wine, things that are going to be super disruptive to your gut health. But that's your way of coping. And I think for a lot of brown girls, the reason why we have those gut issues is because there's a huge relationship between your mind and your gut and vice versa. So mental health is a huge thing. The way you carry yourself is a huge thing. Everything you do comes from your gut. And if your environment doesn't feel safe and you're constantly in fight or flight, and the opposite of that is when you're in rest and digest, your body can actually digest the food.
Right.
But the majority of the time you're not in that state, how can you expect your body to properly digest the food, put the nutrients where they need to go, let your hair grow, let your nails grow, let your skin repair? It's just, you unfortunately don't have the safe environment for that to happen.
Right. And it's partly because, well, maybe not partly, maybe it's entirely because, so when your body is in survival mode, its number one job is survival. Yeah. It's to keep you alive. It's not thinking about other functions. It's not thinking, it doesn't need for you to have a chocolate bar when you're trying to stay alive, right? And the thing about our bodies and the thing about our nervous systems is that they don't know the difference between a bear and a loud voice. Yeah. They don't know the difference between a bear and a fight. They just don't know, right? Like our I don't know if it's which sympathetic system it is. One of the ones, right? But that system, that nervous system doesn't know the difference, right? And so it just assumes that there's danger lurking and it needs to protect you. And so it goes into producing all these things in your body that are going to keep you alive, that are going to keep you alert, and it turns off all the other functions. And digestion is a huge one.
Why does your body need to digest?
Yes. Why does it need to? Exactly. What are those things that our bodies are creating and releasing when we're in that fight or flight?
So when you're constantly stressed, when you're running away from something, the number one hormone that you're going to produce is cortisol, which is our stress hormone. And in small doses, in acute doses, it is very good for you. It's the hormone that if you have an exam and you need to cram all night and you're stressed out, it's going to help you stay up all night and do it. But that's not a hormone that you want running through your body all day, every day. Mostly because, one, like you mentioned, when you're scared and you're stressed, all the blood goes away from your central to give your legs and your hands an ability to run away.
Right.
So there's no blood flow coming to your digestive system. It's all gone to your extremities to help you run, to help you leap. And then if you're in an environment where you physically can't run, it's just all this extra energy is staying in your arms and hands, and it's not going to your belly, and you can't digest. And then another thing that's very common when you're struggling with gut health is you start to eventually gain weight.
Yeah.
And weight gain there's no one reason for it. There's a huge list of reasons why. But if you're going to relate stress to it, when we're stressed, a few things happen. You don't sleep properly. Your brain doesn't shut off. You don't get that rest properly. Your hormones can't rest when they're sleeping. The next day, you're scattered. You didn't get a good night of sleep. You reach for sugar.
Right.
When you're always stressed, your blood sugar is elevated because you need the sugar to run away from the bear. Bear is not there. So you just have all this extra sugar in your body. And when that sugar doesn't have a place to go, it ends up getting turned into stored fat. And so over time, it's just a magnitude of, it's like a domino effect. Like one thing leads to another. And then you add in the fact that you feel bloated, you feel puffy, you feel bigger. You might not even actually be bigger, but you just feel like you're inflamed all the time. And it's not one thing, it's everything that comes to your environment. Like we mentioned, health and wellness isn't just one thing. So when you're working with somebody or you're working to get through it, you have to look at it from all the different angles in order for you to get to the root cause. That's me rambling. Yeah,
no, that was not a ramble at all. I followed all of that through. I think it's such a different take on what is actually happening compared to what we've heard often, right? Like lose weight because you're eating poorly, or you need to start exercising more. You need to do all of these things. I think for a long time, I mean, I'm 27, turning 28, and it's only in this year that I started to really piece those things together. It's like, okay, I've got this stubborn belly fat. It won't go away. Where is it coming from? Okay, it's not my diet. I exercise. I'm a very active person. It's actually stress. I actually remember in the first little bit that you and I started working together, it was my IBS that we were able to really pin things down into, right? And it was actually so interesting. You and I started working together. I had all these goals. I had this clear path. You gave me a protocol. And then something very stressful happened at work that took over my life for 2 to 3 weeks. And I had an IBS flare up. And I was completely derailed. And really, actually, what you helped coach me through was just managing the IBS, like managing the stress. It was supposed to be nutrition. It was supposed to be food, whatever, but it ended up being just managing the IBS. And that's a pattern that I realize now is that when I am in stress or when I am feeling overwhelmed in life, when my flight or fight like instinct is fully on, that's when I have the most discomfort in my belly. When I'm relaxed, I mean, you think about like when you go on vacation, right? When you're on vacation, if I can't normally have dairy, I can't normally have this or that, but if I'm on vacation, I can have a little bit and I'm totally fine. Nothing happens. I'm not as bloated when I'm on vacation. For a long time, I had that pegged as like, oh, the food is different in this place. Yeah. Oh, maybe it's the biome. Like, yes, I'm sure those are factors, but really it's that my body is in such a relaxed state that it's responding to the circumstances so differently.
Yeah. And we can't, as much as we'd all love to, live in a state of pretending we're on a paradise every single day. That's not the reality. And so I think the most important thing is finding daily practices, and it's going to look different for everybody. It does not have to be a 7-hour morning routine. If it is, great, but you can't do that every day. Everyone needs to find something that every day they can do a thing or two to help calm them down. Mm-hmm. So you can bring that little bit of paradise, that calmness into every single day. And the days that you are more stressed and you have more going on, just take that routine or you take that practice a little bit more intensely. Mm-hmm. You do a little bit more.
Yeah.
But finding ways every day.
Yeah. So I'm going to put a pin in that one because I want to talk to you about the brain and gut connection. Yeah. Before I do that, can we talk about hormones and all of this? Yeah. Like what's this big piece around hormones in this stress response and relationship with digestion, no energy in the center of your body? What is that?
Hormones, the easiest way to think of them are chemical messengers that take a response from what's happening outside and what's happening on the inside. When your hormones are running properly, and it's not that there's something wrong with the hormones, but when they're running properly, you're going to notice things like better digestion, your hair is flowy, you have the energy, your nails are growing, you can regulate your hunger better. When your hormones are off balance, that's when you're going to start to experience the sugar cravings. You can't sleep properly, or you're sleeping all day. Your hair is starting to fall out. And so hormones are really just the chemical messengers, and they get released from glands in your brain to your body and vice versa. Just like the gut, there's a brain-gut connection. It's the same thing with your hormones. And so for a lot of brown girls, a lot of girls in general, everybody in general, but specifically when you're talking about brown girls and their gut health, because your hormones are taking a response from something happening outside. So put yourself in your home where the environment's off. That energy of the environment you're in, the toxicity, is going to play a role in the way your hormones do their job. And so for a lot of girls, it's a double-edged sword because your hormones are getting these mixed signals. They can't do their job properly. But then at the same time, your coping mechanism could be something like, I want to stay up all night and watch TV. I just turned 19. I'm going to go drink every weekend. Yeah. Or your coping mechanism is, I just want to eat all the junk food in plain sight. That's what makes me feel good. So your hormones are getting all the bad response that they need. And you don't know that. You don't know what you don't like. You don't know you're doing anything wrong. You're just trying to survive. And I think the most important thing is when you start understanding your body and understanding all your body wants is, when you're in survival mode, all your body wants for you to feel like that little girl that was protected. And when you start to do things in a way where you're protecting her, you're naturally going to start to bring those hormones back into homeostasis. Tummy's going to start to go down. The pain's going to go down. But you have to remind yourself that all your body wants to do is stay safe. And that is it.
Yeah. Yeah. So as I was listening to you, I was thinking a lot about what my life was like around this time period. You know, you said that 13 to 20 was like, maybe 2021 was like this really bad place. Yeah. And I would say that I was the same, right? Like I remember around 1920, up until maybe I was 21, 22, being like a total binge drinker. I used to drink like every Friday, every Saturday, always going out and just getting completely plastered and eating all this dairy, like always eating McDonald's, eating all these things, just like really filling my body up with like the nastiest things. And it was so that I could really disconnect from my body, not have to be in my body, because to be in my body would be way too painful. It would be to realize that, okay, I have pain, I have discomfort, I have inflammation. I also have hormonal irregulation. I have gut problems. I have been like constantly like constipated and diarrhea and like gassy my entire life. Like, I feel like I have problems where like, you know, if I have to be out after 5 p.m., I'm like, I'm like certain it's going to be uncomfortable. Right. And so I think for a very long time, I avoided a lot of connection with my body because I didn't want to wake up to the reality that my inner child, my inner girl felt very unsafe. And because I was in that environment again and again, it was always just being reinforced, right? Like the lack of safety was just always being reinforced again and again. And so it is this double-edged sword where you're like, okay, if I start to pay attention, it'll be too painful. And I don't know what that's going to feel like. I don't know what that's going to look like. But then if I don't pay attention, then I'm going to be in this constant cycle again and again.
And it's a really hard one to get out of.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I commend you for being able to get out of it. Before it got to a point where you brought, you know, kids into it, you took that into when you have kids and you're still doing it. But it's a tough place to be in. And also when you're 13 to 20, who's going to tell you? Who's going to look at what you're doing and be like, don't do it? Besides your parents. Everyone you hang out with is your age. Everybody around you is doing it. So you think it's normal.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. You know, you're saying that it's really important to get yourself out of there. I feel like you've been able to get yourself out of there a little more than I have, which is why you're in a position of coaching and mentoring women. I actually had this meditation this morning and I had this realization where I was like, why is my stomach hurting? Like quite before I used to numb myself a lot with it. Like I would take a Pepto-Bismol. Dival at home was number one. Like I used to take Dival all the freaking time. Like I just used to drink it. And this morning I was like, okay, so my stomach's been hurting for the last few days. Things have been a little bit off. What is going on? Yeah. And so I realized that, so I do this practice. It's called dropping in. It's a practice that I learned from groundwork. And I started to drop in this morning and I immediately went back to this place in my life. I can't remember how old I was, but I was in the hospital because my belly was really hard. Like it was very hard. It was painful to touch. And I don't know if it was because of something I ate. I don't know, but I just know I was in the hospital because my belly was very, very hard. It felt like rock hard. And I just had this image of myself like lying in the hospital bed, feeling very lethargic, disconnected, upset, and just my dad's on the chair and my mom's not around, but my dad's there. And as 27-year-old Harpo, I'm like, oh, like, you know, you get to that place and it's not because of something I ate. It's not because, you know, I was sick or there was like a bacteria or anything. It wasn't like that because they actually just gave me probably like a laxative or something. And then I was ready to go home. Right. But the energetic understanding of constipation, if you think about it, is what our body does is it releases things. It lets things go. But when you can't let things go and you hold it all inside, it turns into like constipation. It turns into whatever, right? And so this morning I like went back to that version of myself, that little girl in the hospital. And I was just so sad to see her like that. And I realized the last 2 weeks, my stomach was hurting so much because my parents were fighting for 2 weeks. For 2 weeks, they weren't speaking to each other. And that's why my stomach was off. And that's why I had constipation again for 2 weeks. That's why my body was uncomfortable. It's why I haven't been able to go to the gym in weeks. Like there's just so many things, you know, and yes, I'm eating clean. I get 90 grams of protein every single day, right? Which I know you're
That's
happy.
my girl.
That's my girl. We worked on that, right? And so I'm so mindful. And yet I was having that. And I realized it was because my parents' relationship triggers me into this like complete out of body. I'm not going to even connect with my center, and everything in my world becomes very myopic. I don't think about anything else. I'm in stress. I'm in IBS, whatever it is, but that's what happens to my body. And so I bring that up to say, like, I think I've transcended it, but I actually haven't because it still happens without my awareness all the time.
But you caught it. You didn't get to a point where you had to go to the hospital. We had to pump you with like everything to get it out. You're taking all the laxatives in the world. You caught it. And it's normal because, like I said, we don't live on an island. This is going to happen. Whether it's the parents, whether it's a job, whether it's a relationship, life is going to happen. This is going to happen. The most important thing you can do is, one, the fact that you understood it. Amazing. Not everyone can. But two, having a toolkit of things that you can do to help you. And also understanding that, like with everything that's happened, it's going to pass. It's not going to stay here forever. It's going to pass. As much as I've loved to say that I've healed, 2 years ago, I went to the hospital because I was constipated.
Wow.
And I legit, like, I did not know that I was constipated. They thought I had gallstones. Had to take laxatives because my doctor told me I had to take them. Realized it's because I had moved into a new environment. It was so different for me. And I thought I was mentally handling it fine. Like, I thought life was good. I was going to school. I was going out. Like, I thought I was good. But my body was like, you're not good. This is so not true. No.
Yeah. Mentally, we think we're Gucci.
Yeah. Like, you think like, yeah, you're like living, you're going to the grocery store, you're meeting people, you're doing things.
Yeah.
And your body is like, you need to listen to me. And this is how you're going to listen to me.
And yeah, if you're not going to hear my whispers, I'm going to scream.
Yeah. And that is what our body does.
Right.
And constipation is not fun.
No, not at all.
Not fun.
No. Yeah. You think about it energetically. You're just holding on. You're holding on to literal and figurative shit.
Like, you're holding on to shit.
You're not letting it go, right? And so many of us do that. We just bottle our feelings up. We just hold it in. What did you do between the ages of 21 and 26 to bring yourself out of this loop and to bring yourself into awareness?
Moved out. And it's not easy for everyone, and not everyone can do it. But my mom took us out of that environment. She got us a townhouse. We left. Then there was issues with me and my mom because for years, me and her were best friends. And now we're in this new environment, both trying to navigate it. So me and her had issues. Yeah. So then I had to leave my mom's house. Then I left. And in those 6 years of leaving, I got to spend a lot of time alone. And because I knew I had done enough research to know that my nervous system was just over the top, I worked with a therapist for a little while, and the biggest thing that I had to do was calm the fuck down. Yeah. I needed to sit at home and do nothing. Yeah. I need to calm. Like, I couldn't even go to a beach at a certain point when it was really bad, because going to a beach meant that I was going to sit there and do nothing. Yeah. And that drove me nuts. I could not, like, I thought going to the beach was like the silliest thing. Why would you want to go and sit here
and be non-productive
and like not do, like, it didn't make sense to me. And then my therapist was like, but do you think that's just like that's your body telling you this is what you need? And so the other thing that really helped me was I had to explore a lot of things that I was resistant to, like going to the Gurdwara. I was super resistant. We used to go religiously. Yeah. And then my mom, she goes all the time, but because me and her were fighting, I didn't want to go. I think I had a spite for her. Yeah. So then I wouldn't go. And then when I'm like, okay, no, you're resisting to this for like the dumbest reasons. Yeah. You need to go. And so I started to lean into more things I was resisting to. And my diet played a huge role at the beginning, because I noticed 21 to about 25 was a lot of learning, a lot of ups and downs. But one thing I had noticed was if I ever had a night where I would go and drink, or if I ate a lot of really refined sugars, the next day I was a mess. And I was like a mess to a point where I was like, literally, it's embarrassing, but I was like crying and yelling, and I was so angry at everybody around me. And then I had to realize, okay, you know what? It's the things that I'm putting in my body. Yeah. So major shift. It wasn't a forever shift, but it was a shift in that moment where you need to be mindful of what you're putting in your body. Yeah. Because everything you consume is either helping you or harming you. There was a time and place for the sugar food. But right now, your healing is not the time and place. And when that is sorted, you can bring it in. So a lot of doing nothing, a lot of mindful eating, and a lot of questioning things that I was being resistant to. Right. People that I was resisting. I didn't want to talk to any of my dad's family. Realized that was me running away from it. Yeah. Not actually dealing with it. lots of journaling. My journal is just my best friend. I journal everything out. And the reason why is because if it's in my head, I will think about it all day long.
Right.
It needs to get on a piece of paper. It needs to like go away. And I will go so far as to write it and throw it away.
Yeah.
And I meditate every day.
Yeah. I was hoping you would talk about meditation because so in my understanding and learning of the brain and gut connection, you need to have a top-down approach, literally.
Yeah.
So like top from your mind down into your body, you need to have a top-down approach. So everything that you've shared in terms of what you're doing actually is connected to establishing regulation in your body, especially when you've been in a place of dysregulation. And why it needs to be a top-down approach is because you need to quiet the mind for your body's like operation, like the factory to stop, to like stop producing in mass, right? And I've been reading Dr. Joe Dispenza recently, and he talks a lot about, in the simplest way, like how the different parts of our brains work with the different hormones and the chemicals. And if it all starts with a thought. It actually all starts with a thought. And so you do need to actually journal. You need to remove yourself from environments that create bad thoughts. You need to create enough stillness and space, like going to the beach, so that you can watch the thoughts arise. And you need to meditate because you need to train your mind to like let go of the thought.
Yeah.
Because it's the thought that starts the factory, that starts to, so when you have a thought, if you're thinking about your body doesn't know the difference between something happening right now versus something that happened 6 years ago.
Yeah.
When you think about the fight that you folks had at home 4 years ago, your body thinks it's in it again. So what it'll do is it'll start to create those same hormones and chemicals. And then the hormones are messengers telling your body, oh my God, we're in a fight. We're in a fight.
Yeah.
And then your body will do that thing again. And it'll like take all the energy away from your digestion to your extremities. You're in survival again.
Yeah.
So it is actually very, very important to have a top-down approach when you are healing, when you are trying to sort of bring yourself back into regulation, because unless you do that, you're going to be in the same cycle again and again. So it might not be moving out, like you said, but it is literally creating safety within your body first.
I absolutely love the way you worded it, the top down, because again, there's a huge mind-gut connection. And so everything is connected, but I love the way that you worded it, where it's like top down, mind going down. And the other thing, I don't do it as much as I wish I did, but our chakras, I used to literally visualize from the top all the way down, right to the bottom. And I would say something positive to each one. And then I would have a little bit more energy as I went down, because that's where I really needed it. The vocal part was fine. I was very vocal as the older child. This was good. But down there, anything here was like where the love needed to be.
Yeah.
And I like the visual of that.
Yeah. And actually, so again, very happy that you brought up the chakras again, because this is part of what my meditation this morning was about. The root chakra is what causes constipation.
Yeah.
Because it's your inability to let go of things. And it actually sits right at the perineum between your genitals and your anus. And energetically, that is the foundation. So if you're not feeling safe, you're not feeling secure, you're not feeling grounded, your root chakra will be out of balance.
Yeah.
And that's the energy that goes up into your sacral, which is in your pelvis area, that governs relationships, expression, creativity. And when those two things are not flowing, what's next is your solar plexus, which is where your digestion lives. This is where your sense of security, your sense of self-worth, your sense of being and confidence lives, and also where your digestion happens, right? This is where the chemical processing, and if your energy has been completely removed from this area and you're not feeling safe and secure, so from your root chakra up into your solar plexus, if it's not flowing, you're disconnected. Like you're literally off. You're not even in your body anymore.
I love the way you put it. I'm happy that you talked about pelvis. So we'll back it up to what helped me. And it's not going to be for everybody. But one of the reasons why I gravitated toward Pilates, after I discovered I loved it so much, I did more research on it, and then I got certified in it. One thing I learned is a lot of our stored emotions, we store a lot in our pelvis, especially as women. We hold everything here. There's so much trauma there. One day we want to have kids. Giving birth is a trauma to your body. And it's so close to your gut, like everything here, you're holding on to trauma, and moving your body in a way that feels good for you, whether it's running, whether it's sprinting, whether it's boxing, but moving your body is one of the best ways to get energy in your body to physically move out of you.
Right.
And if you focus on doing pelvic floor work, it'll allow you, it's a little uncomfortable if you have avoided it and you don't want to think about holding on to things. It can be a little uncomfortable, and you need to be in a space where you feel safe enough to move and release those energies. But it could be a really effective way for somebody who has trauma and they want to move past it, and they slowly want to move their body in a way that feels good, but finding a way to activate your pelvic floor. And if you learn how to do it, you can bring it into walking, you can bring it into strength training. And I think that's another reason why I love the body, because it's not just one thing. It's so many different angles.
Yeah.
And it's really cool because it's a learning. Like, you will never be done learning about your body. You will read things 10 times over, and the 11th time it'll hit.
Yeah.
And like, that is why I do this.
Yeah, totally. What would you say to people who are listening who are intimidated by trying different forms of exercise or physical exertion? What would you say to people who feel like Pilates isn't for me because I don't have the body type, or I don't have the cute clothes, or I don't feel like I fit into the picture of what is a Pilates girl? You alluded to this in the beginning where you didn't feel like weightlifting was for you, so you chose Pilates. Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about what would you say to someone who feels that way? But then can you talk a little bit about why, or not even why, but like how you ended up deciding what was for you and what wasn't for you?
It's such a good question. I think for anybody who wants to get into a certain type of movement or wants to just start moving, my advice to you, and you take it with a grain of salt, is do it in private. If that means just going for a walk once or twice a week. I know for a lot of people, it's the discomfort of showing up to a place and maybe you don't feel like you look like you should be there. But I would say do it in private. You can hire somebody one-on-one, do your research, go for walks by yourself, put on a YouTube video, do that for a little bit, build that confidence of, okay, my body can do it. And I can promise you, as somebody that teaches classes and somebody who goes to a gym, there is nobody that looks a certain way. Everybody is so uniquely different. Everybody is so beautiful. And I think the most important thing is it's never about how you look. It's the way you carry yourself. It's never going to be that you don't have the Lululemon outfit. Most girls don't wear that. Most girls will wear a t-shirt and shorts. It's not like you need to have that to be there. The most important step is taking that one first initial walking into a space and just do it once. And you're going to build the momentum, and you don't have to do Pilates. You can literally do anything you want to do. You and your body will know when it feels right, because you will start to crave it. Right. It will never feel like a workout to you. And eventually it'll get to a point where that becomes your routine. And the best thing to do is hop into a bunch of different classes, see what you like. There's so many boxing, there's HIIT workouts. If you're trying to balance your nervous system, I would say stick to maybe 2, maybe 3 HIIT workouts a week. Doesn't need to be 7 days a week, but give it a shot, see what you like, and then just own it.
Yeah.
You don't have to do Pilates. You don't have to go to the gym.
Right. Right. And the reason that this advice is important also is because when you have spent so much time in your life, so many years feeling disconnected, disempowered, unsafe in your body, in your environment, pushing yourself to go do something that further creates a lack of safety is actually counterintuitive. Yeah. So don't go do the HIIT workout 7 times a week. I will never do a HIIT workout. Yeah. You will catch me dead in that shit. I will not do it. But I will go to a Pilates class. Yeah. I will go to yoga. I will go to the gym, and I will go for a walk. I probably will not go to boxing. I tried it. It's fine. It's not that big of a attraction to me, but you actually can't push yourself into it, because that's not the point, because you're actually further disconnected from your body, right? So, but you actually have to create space for yourself to experience whatever it is that you're interested in, right? You have to just have a little bit of faith, but trust your body. Your body knows if something is for you or not.
Your body will feel it. Like your stomach will feel it.
Yeah, totally.
Immediately.
Yeah. So, your Instagram content to me is one of the best content that I have ever seen. And I love it because it's so authentic. It's so genuine. You're not the kind of nutrition coach that tells women, don't drink, or you're not supposed to drink, or you can't drink. Yeah. You can't have junk food. You actually post a lot of tips on like, if you are going to be drinking this summer, here are ways to do it. And you do a lot of recap of like what you're eating, what you ate at the beach, what you ate at the lake, what you ate on your weekend to Kelowna with your mans. Like you post a lot of these things. It's very realistic. Can you tell me about why you do it in this way? Like what's your approach? What is your philosophy for the nutrition coaching that you're offering?
So easy. And I know exactly where it comes from. When I first started my healing journey, the people that I was attracted to and whose pages I would follow or the people's advice I would take were the ones that were sharing everything. They weren't just sharing their green smoothie. They were sharing, okay, on the weekend I did this. And like, it's a part of life. I one day will get to a point where I will probably cut alcohol. It's not going to happen until I'm 30 and I have kids and I can't get up. I can't sleep in the next day. But the reality is that a lot of girls that follow me are between the age of 20 to 40. Mm-hmm. They have a social life. They love going out. They want to travel. Traveling to me is huge. I would love to be in a place where I could travel all the time. But I love sharing that you can do X, Y, and Z. Here's kind of how to combat it. Of course, in a perfect world, you wouldn't drink and you wouldn't stay up late, but we don't live in a perfect world. Yeah. So here's what you can do going forward. And I think that one value I always had when I started was I wanted to be authentic. I never wanted to share something that was not me. Mm-hmm. You will never see a matcha latte on my thing that I made. Like,
you're not a matcha girly?
I don't have the energy to like whisk it. I'll buy it, but I'll never make it. I'm not the type to not drink and go out. I will party till 4 a.m. Not all the time, but when I do, I will own it and I will say that I've done it. And if you saw me the night before, you didn't. Yeah. But I think being authentic and being real is what I was drawn to. And that's how I always want to show up.
Right.
And I want to create content where when people see it, it's like a light bulb moment. I don't want it to be content that you could have Googled. Because at that point, we could all do it. But there's certain things like values that speak to people in a different way that you can't Google. And that's the content that I want to share.
Yeah. And it's very niche. I think that's like for you to be like, I'm picking this category, which is the girlies with hormonal and gut issues. It comes from lived experience as well, right? It comes from trial and tribulation. And now knowing that one of your values is authenticity, it makes a lot of sense why we gravitate towards each other. Because that's one of my values too. It's like it's written down everywhere. Authenticity is very important to me because I think that authentic places are the places from which you can create meaningful change, right? Yes. When you're not authentic, you're not in integrity. So you cannot create meaningful change from a disintegrous place. So that's why I think I really gravitated towards working with you. And I will say that this is obviously not an ad for you at all. This is not a paid podcast, but what I really liked was that you constantly met me where I was. And there are so many, like, okay, in the world that we live in, there are diet plans everywhere. Yeah. There are pills everywhere. There are powders and smoothies everywhere. Yeah. But they're so unrealistic because it's still placing the onus of change outside of yourself. And the work that we did together was a lot of like, how can you get back into your body? How can you start to work on this again? And, you know, I find that often I have your protocols in my email, right? So when I've gone through this like stressful loop, I can just start back at protocol 1 again. I can just like, there's a constant flow that I can show up with again and again. It's like I go far back into the ocean, then I come back to shore, right? And I think those are the kinds of practitioners that I really enjoy working with. And you're one of them because I think you were able to really be very, very realistic about what is possible and what isn't.
I love that. I think being authentic, something I've noticed is when you're authentic and true to yourself, you attract people that align with you. And I think that's why you and I hit it off. In the last year, when we worked together, every conversation we had left me feeling like I was grateful to work with you because it left me feeling so happy and so grateful. And when you show up as your true self, your best self, as best as you can be, you're going to attract people that are on the same wavelength as you. And I think that's the most beautiful thing about creating.
Yeah. And then in that creation, like being real about where that creation's coming from. So like, you know, you could be a beautiful person and be skinny and be this and that. And then you come on Instagram and then you see that Meagan used to not be able to go to the beach or the lake and put on a bikini because she hated herself. You know?
Like I hated my arms.
Yeah. Right. Or like you posted something about how you have these little, right. And I have them too. And on my arms and just to see that you're like, okay, I'm not the only one. And that's why even the podcast exists. It's like to be like, you're not the only one. Right.
We're all dealing with that.
We're all with it.
Brown girls dealing with very similar things. Our skin is weird.
Yeah.
It does weird things.
Yeah.
Your brain tells you weird things.
Yeah, totally.
I think it's important in your 20s. I found it really hard to make friends in my 20s. So I selfishly used my platform to make friends.
Yeah.
Because it's really hard to go when you work for yourself and you're not at an office.
Yeah.
So I selfishly used it to make friends.
Exhibit A. That's so true. Last question. What advice would you give to anyone who's listening to this podcast and doesn't know where to start when it comes to building this relationship, this understanding, this communion with their body?
I think I would say take some time to think about what the perfect idea of you that you have. What does that person look like? What do they do? How do they go about the way they buy things? Really spend some time visualizing the person you want to be. And then take some time thinking about, okay, what am I doing differently what am I doing differently that's not who I want to be? And then from there, you have clear answers of where to go. And then I think the most important thing, and this was the one thing that truly helped me, was you need to go back in time to when you were a child, and you need to look at that child, and everything you do, you need to think, would I do this for her? Would I say this to her? If you as a 5-year-old were like, I'm hungry, I'm going to go to McDonald's. No, honey, do it at home. We're going to make something at home. We can go later. Or if that 5-year-old was like to you, I really want to move my body, but like, I just feel fat. Would you say, yeah, you do?
Yeah.
Would you be like, yeah, 5-year-old you look chubby, don't go do that? Like, that's not how you would speak to your 5-year-old self.
Yeah.
Why are you speaking to yourself like that now?
Yeah.
And every time we leave our body, I think coming back to that younger version of ourselves, because we're always here. Our parents are there. Siblings are there. Speak to yourself from a place of love. And I think that'll help you get back to the root and to your why, like why you want to make these changes.
Yeah, that's powerful. And I would add to that by saying, like, fill your brain with knowledge on your body. Read everything. Go get books, listen to podcasts, watch YouTube videos, follow Instagram accounts that expose you to these things. I follow this one Instagram account where the woman talks about how she works out during different stages of her menstrual cycle. And so she'll post a picture of herself during her luteal phase compared to her follicular phase, and her body looks so different. But she's this like super strong, powerful, like toned, like lean woman. So do that. Be intentional. Like surround yourself with new information, new knowledge. Equip yourself. Learn what your brain and gut connection is. We didn't get to talk about this, but for women there's a brain, gut, and vagina connection too, which is insane. I remember reading an entire book on that, and I was like, whoa, holy shit, this has been like kept from me all these years. But go do that. Explore yourself. Follow Meagan on Instagram.
We're so grateful to live in a day and age where like everything that you want to learn is accessible.
Yeah. Go hang out in the health section of the bookstore. Like, go do that.
And just see what you gravitate towards.
Yeah, totally.
Just do not pick up a diet book. Do not pick up a diet book.
Yeah.
I've seen a few. Don't pick up diet books. Pick up the nutrition books that tell you what food does for you. There's so many gut books. The first one I ever read was the Mind Gut Connection. Like a beautiful book to like help you understand the connection. Yeah. But read everything. Yeah. And ask questions.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for being on the podcast and for sharing your own personal experience. Thank you for opening up your knowledge and your wisdom and your experience. Thank you for coaching beautiful women like me to get more intimately connected with our bodies, and for really seeing a niche, like really seeing something and seeing this gap and then chasing it full force, and just for being so authentic, real, and honest. Thank you so much for all of that.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for allowing me to share it.
Of course.
And creating space. I loved it.